Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Blake and Aaron.
Good morning.
Aaron is back.
Welcome back, Aaron.
Thanks. It
Yeah,
was
you still sound a little bit rough, but you're
He
looking
does, yeah.
good.
it was a bad flu. I
Ugh,
gotta say that. My whole family got hit last week and I managed to get it at the very end.
oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
So
Yeah, it's tough when
yay.
you're mommy a lot of times to avoid
Oh yeah.
catching it because you're often
Keep,
taking care of everyone.
right? Just keep your kids home if they're sick, people.
Yeah.
You know? Just do that, please.
What do you got
Yes.
for us this morning?
All right. Breaking news this morning at 2
Uh-oh.
a.m.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, nothing good happens after midnight. Y'all know that rule, right?
I do.
Mm.
So at 2 a.m. on West Bay Road, a man was found with a gunshot wound, not
What?
responsive.
Oh no.
To
Yeah.
where?
Um,
What part of his body?
I don't think they actually specified. They just said not responsive.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh no, my apologies. To the head. Hold on.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Is this in any relation to
The other one,
the
yeah.
other
I
one?
think it would be too early to say for sure.
And where was this
My
at?
gosh.
What part of West Bay Road?
By White Sand Condos.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's up there by the Kimpton.
So that's breaking news
Wow.
this morning. So as
Any other details around that?
it's a developing story, so it's still
Okay.
very, very early.
Jesus, what is this
And,
island coming to?
I remember when we 12 years ago when we first got to the island, that first year there was like 7 murders,
Yeah.
Yes.
like right in a row. I know it was like a couple of families or
I feel like it
gangs.
was 20 days of like
yeah, they were sort of
someone was
retaliating against
shot,
each
yeah.
other. These seemed like separate incidents,
Yeah.
which is a little bit more concerning.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just and especially like, where it's like, especially right there, the places that it's happening at now. It's not like it seemed like it was a little bit more turf wars back then,
Right.
and
Mhm.
now it doesn't. It just seems robberies
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
anything. It's unbelievable.
And the Cayman Islands Coast Guard has ceased their search and recovery efforts for 3 men who they say had gone overboard last week in an alleged drug boat. After days of searching, they basically called off the search. So we're told that when you go missing in the North Sound at night, it's probably going to have really perilous results. So unfortunately for them, they don't have any names of these individuals. We did ask, were you able to get any positive ID in names? And they said no, because you know how it works. Like your drug friend only knows you by your street name. So it
Mhm.
could be Papa Smurf or whatever. So they only have a basic description, but no confirmed identity.
What,
So
what
I
happens to you?
wonder.
What happens to you in the North Sound at night?
It's just not a good area for you to go overboard.
Like
Like sharks? You
current,
mean, or
sharks, everything.
Probably currents, I would think.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mhm. Speaking of sharks, there's been a story floating around over the last couple of days that a man had been bitten by a shark at Smith Cove. And we want to again confirm that story is not the Cayman Islands. It's a photo that came from San Andres, Colombia, and somehow got attached to a voice note that said, "Oh my gosh, this is the Cayman Islands," and it actually isn't. So, despite us putting up a fake news alert yesterday, there were still people even after that messaging us saying, "Oh, this is the Cayman Islands. This happened at Smith Cove," and I'm like, "No, it's not."
I did see a
So-
video though floating around of a small baby reef shark that was swimming, darting in and out of people at Stingray City. Have
Stingray
you seen
City.
that?
Yeah, we posted that. Yeah,
Oh,
we
did
did
you?
post
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I gotta go check that
That
out.
was wild. I'll show
That'd be
it to
fun.
you.
When was that?
I don't know when it
A
was.
couple days ago, so I think it might have been over the weekend.
Oh, I was.
But you probably want to be careful with sharks of any kind and
Oh,
encouraging
sure.
them. I think with the lockdown, a lot of Mother Nature has returned to very different areas. So sharks are coming closer in, and they weren't being bothered by anyone.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't try to pet a shark. They're not a dog.
Well, no, that's not. Yeah, that's absolutely not. Yeah, but
Listen,
I've been diving
you'll
with
have
sharks.
people
They
try to
just
kiss.
kill.
They'll be like, "Oh, we can kiss the we
No.
can kiss the stingrays. Let's kiss a shark."
Yeah.
Probably not going to end well.
I
No.
mean, no, it's even the stingrays, people are a little bit too comfortable with them. And it's I saw some people actually, I was there this weekend at some point and I see people just trying to pick them up and they aren't being very gentle and I feel like that is a little disconcerting as well.
Yeah.
So, convicted killers Osborne Douglas and Justin Ramoon, who were both in British jails serving life sentences for the murder of Jason Powery, have been granted a new hearing in their fight to serve their sentences here in the Cayman Islands. So, the judgment dropped yesterday, April the 27th, and the Court of Appeal, who they were appealing to, ruled that their applications for judicial review should be remitted to the Grand Court for a fresh hearing using a closed material procedure. So, of course, there was quite a bit that came out during the course of this trial. And there's a lot of sensitive information surrounding these two young men. One, they're both brothers. One has been sentenced to a minimum of 34 years, and the other has been sentenced to a minimum of 35 years. So they were transferred both in June of 2017 to the UK to serve the remainder of their sentence there. And the authorities in the Cayman Islands, including the governor's office, have been, very much involved in this. And they say that these two half brothers, are alleged gang leaders. And despite being incarcerated here in the Cayman Islands, that they had a very long reach outside of the prison. And so they had to remove them from the jurisdiction for the safety of all sorts of people. And during the trial, it actually came out that a psychiatrist who worked there, or prison employee, some kind of supervisor, had started a relationship with one of the brothers. And despite returning to the UK, she has maintained a relationship with this prisoner. And so that was one of the reasons why they were also very, very concerned to get them out of the jurisdiction.
Wow.
So
Well,
pretty crazy things.
You got to jump, Sandy, and your show's starting in about 30 seconds on Bobo
Thank you so
89.1. So we'll see you tomorrow for Friday. All right.
Have a good one.
Bye, y'all.
All right, folks, let me get this link going very, very quickly here, literally 30 seconds. So let me just log in. Gonna make sure that everything is kosher. Oh, I see. It says I'm already logged in. Okay, let me just move this tab over. All right, so I think we are good to go. So just a couple seconds. Let me grab the YouTube links.
Peppermint, sorrel, ginger, beaver grass, or English. Get it ready. Your morning tea just got hotter.
Ooh, honey child.
On the cold, hard truth. Bobo 89.1 and Cayman's #1 talk show are bringing you morning talk like no one else. Monday Rewind, Impact Wednesdays, Caribbean Connections, and much more. Don't miss a beat with what's happening in the local community. Just keep sipping your tea.
What a mess.
Here's your host, live and direct from the Cayman Islands, Sandy Hill.
All right, good morning, Cayman. Good morning. Happy Thursday. It is April the 28th. Wow, we've got some breaking news for you this morning. Of course, you guys know that we try to keep on top of all of the news as it's happening. And unfortunately, this morning I woke up to messages of yet another murder in the Cayman Islands. So we're going to talk about that here shortly. Just a reminder that you can join the conversation at any time at 936-2626. Again, that's 936-BOBO here for the cold hard truth. So we're going to get into what we know, what little we know about that situation. And I do need to update you all a couple other stories as well. And the scheduled topic that we were going to talk about, which is employment opportunities for young people and our expectations of them, we'll push that into about the second hour of the program. So lots of news happening for such a small little island. I always say this. I'm always quite surprised that so much happens in the Cayman Islands. But folks, it is what it is. And we're here to bring it to you unfiltered. And, it's certainly up to you to take what you will from it. So this is a developing story this morning. We'll get into some of the details. Throughout the morning, we'll be double checking all of our sources to definitely see if any new information is coming in, because funny enough, people have been messaging saying, hey, that's my my cousin, or I think I know who that is. We haven't had a positive identification yet from the authorities, but many of you will know that what makes Cayman Mall Road work is our community-based news. You know, we get our news in the community, so we don't have to wait 2 days for the authorities to confirm that an incident has happened. We literally know sometimes in real time when it's going on. So we do have some details, like I said, that are coming in this morning. And I want to ensure that we're getting that to you guys in a timely fashion. So do bear with me this morning as I start to read through some of your messages. So good morning to everyone. Thank you guys so much for listening to this program. You've, well, you made this Cayman's #1 talk show even before we were on traditional radio. So that certainly shows our loyal following is here, and we really do appreciate that. So folks, let me see. All right, so yes, we've got some photos from the area. We don't really see, I'll show you guys those here in just a second. Obviously, if you're on radio, you're not able to see all that's happening. We do have a photo of the young man now. I don't know who he is, obviously. I don't run in those circles, child. But yes, we do. We already know who he is. And that's just how Cayman is, folks. All right. Good morning to Evelyn. Buenos dias to Rita. Wiwi's here. Diamond Princess. Vale, buenos dias. ¿Cómo estás? You know, Evelyn says, what the WTF is going on? BBC. We don't know. Yeah, really, really sad. So good morning to Marshall, Olivia, Miss Beulah. Jonathan is joining us. She says, good morning to you, dear Sandy and Cayman News. Louis joining us from Detroit. Marshall says, well, if it was a drug boat, this is in reference to the fact that the Coast Guard has called off the search and rescue mission, search and recovery, because it went from a search and rescue to search and recovery. And he says they went overboard. Why search for them? That's what they get for bringing drugs into the Cayman Islands. Well, of course, we are obligated to follow certain international standards. And I know when someone has been labeled as a criminal, obviously they've not yet been convicted of anything, we sort of think, well, they have no rights and we can treat them anyway. Well, that's not quite how it works. And I do think that, you know, one of the reasons why you search for them is because there is a possibility that they could be coming ashore. So even for your own safety, you probably want to determine, you know, well, what's going on there. So no one has seen them. They have no names for these individuals. They are only, they were only given a description by the one man who remains alive out of the 4 that were attempting to bring some 900 pounds of ganja into the Cayman Islands. So folks, what we know so far this morning is a young man. He looks pretty young from this picture. Yeah. Has been killed. He was found unresponsive in the vicinity of white sand condos on West Bay Road, shot in the head. Handsome fella, if this is him. Wow, so sad. Oh, yeah. Really, that's all we know at this point. One day we hope to be able to you know, be in a position where we can just call up the RCAPS in real time and say, you know, what are you able to tell us? This is what we hear that's going on. But unfortunately, they need a couple days to respond to things and to arrange an interview. We are attempting to get an interview with the commissioner, but that may or may not happen. They did get back to us after inadvertently forgetting to invite us to a press conference. They did get back to us and say, he'd be willing to do a phone call. And I said, what about an actual sit-down interview? And so they're still thinking about that. So we're still waiting on a response on that front. I think communicating with the people, sometimes you don't even have a whole lot to say. And I know this sounds crazy, but the people just want some assurance of what's going on, that you're in control. We all feel a sense right now of uncomfortableness, and that the criminals are the ones who are actually in control. And so, just trying to alleviate those fears when there's so much happening on the streets would be wonderful. We saw yesterday that the governor's office issued a statement in relation to the murder of an off-duty prison, former or retired prison officer. And of course, he expressed his condolences to the family, and also expressed the seriousness of this entire situation, and that the police are, I guess, working as much as they can. But again, they're calling in the public. So he calls in the public to tell what they know about Elliot's murder. And we get it, that they need maybe the public's assistance. I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable that it appears that the only way that these crimes can be solved is through the public's assistance. But folks, most good crime fighting, if you guys sit down, I know all y'all are detectives and we're all experts, and we all watch 48 Hours and we think we know everything about crime fighting. But the truth of the matter is, normally it really comes down to somebody who heard something, somebody who saw something, contacting the police and saying, hey, this is it. Or did this person have a beef with someone? Or, it's the good citizens in any community, in any country, that steer the police and their investigation in the right direction. Of course, in a jurisdiction this small, people have concerns about protecting, information if it's provided. And I can tell you that there are ways and means to do that, folks. Whenever we can, we facilitate the pass-through of information. Obviously, we're not in a position to verify any of it. We'll just say, hey, this is a tip that we received, we're passing it on, and we only provide tips to the highest level of the RCIPS. So we don't talk to any and everybody over there. Definitely not. And so then they know how to handle the information from there. And I can tell you that people have been arrested because of tips that have been passed through from good people. So this mantra of, if you see something, say something, I think is really, really important. So the governor's calling on anyone in the public who may know something, who may have seen something, to please, pass information onto the police. And he says here in a quote that he joins the RCIPS in making a direct appeal to anyone on our island to come forward with any information about this crime. This incident, or this type of incident, is not the Cayman I've come to admire and respect. If you have any information, please contact the RCIPS so that they can apprehend those responsible for this heinous crime and obtain justice for the family of Mr. Elliott. So, he also went on to say that he's aware of, people feeling a sense of shock and revulsion over the shooting, which took place on Monday night. And, it really is disturbing. I've had so many people, his former coworkers and friends, who continue to reach out to me in hopes that his murder will be solved, because, he was just an innocent bystander. He didn't deserve, I don't care how much gambling he may have been doing, whatever, he did not deserve to lose his life, and nobody deserves to lose their life in this manner. So very, very unfortunate situation here, folks. And we also join in imploring anyone who has information to please, there's the anonymous tip line. Like I said, if you want people to get the right people to get the information, I think a lot of you do know how to go about it. And, by all means, please do so, because when you allow these criminals to take control and to run your streets, we're going to have a much bigger problem than what we have now. So good morning to Emma. Emma says, nice top there, host. Love the colors. Thank you so much. You guys know I did a little bit of refreshing of my wardrobe recently. Not done yet. Got to take it and in small baby manageable bites, when you're on a budget, when you got to live on a budget because you got bills to pay. You buy one, two, and save up for the next one, too. Emma says they searched because they're still human beings and maybe had a mother or kids that have no idea what the hell they were doing. Never forget, we never know how we will react until we are in that situation. So yes, I mean, when people go missing, that is still human life. We can't just say, well, they're criminals or alleged criminals, so therefore it doesn't matter. Good morning to Miss Iva. How is my mango tree coming along? The interesting thing about it as well, Emma, is I know that oftentimes we stand in judgment of others and we will say, oh my God, I would never do XYZ. And we swear for what we would do and what we wouldn't do. But I do think that the truth of the matter is when you grew up in certain environments and certain situations, your reality is so much different, right? So whether it's, we talk about people coming to the Cayman Islands, prostituting themselves and, selling the only asset that they believe they have, which is their body, because they haven't had the benefit of an education. They can't get out there and make a job beyond being a barmaid. And, they got to make a little bit extra on the side, and the body is their number one commodity. They marry people to get a leg up in life. We don't necessarily understand that because we don't come from the types of depraved environments that they do. And I, to a certain extent, do understand and do sympathize with that because I've seen from a distance in person abject poverty, even in Cuba. Like I've been to Cuba and I've been in the country and you see people out by the cigar factory when the tour buses start, they don't have any shoes even to wear. And they're like begging for even 5-10 cents, in American dollars to try to help them. So I try not to be as harsh in my judgment, although I also understand that there are consequences for all behavior. I think a lot of people are born into situations. And, like we said on yesterday's program, when that is all that is the pattern and the behaviors, et cetera, that you will continue to break or to make. And it is very, very easy for people who don't live in that type of a situation to judge you and to say, well, I would do X, Y, Z. It's not always so easy when you're not walking in their shoes. So I think that, yes, I do sympathize with them up to a point. And I understand that some of these drug runners, even coming from Jamaica, really have no choice. They're told that they have to do it or family members and others will be harmed. So it's not necessarily like they're saying, oh, this is a big career move for me. It's that they grew up in an environment where the only life they know is a life of being a gangster. That's the only way to move in these communities. And, from a very, very early age, that's what they're exposed to. So Marshall says they might be humans, but it's obvious that they didn't think about their family members, their mother, father, kids when they got involved in criminal activities. So I'm not sorry for them. Good morning to Louise. Good morning, Everton. Good morning to Ann Dean. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So we have over 300 people on the live stream, and I'm sure a lot more listening to Bobo 89.1 FM. Do feel free to call us if you have any questions or comments to make. We're waking up again this morning to a bit of sobering news of yet another young man, it looks like, who has lost his life to violence here in the Cayman Islands. The most shocking thing about this, folks, is it always seems to be, for the most part, young men. And, an entire generation of young Caymanian men is being wiped out by the violence of the streets. So either they end up in jail and they're losing a significant part of their adult life, or they're being gunned down and killed in the streets. Someone just sent me the photo and they said he doesn't look like a Caymanian. I hate to tell you, but he probably is 100% Caymanian. Folks, yep, okay, we got a name already along with the photo now. All right, I'll tell you guys in a bit what this is. So, listen, I want to talk about this concept of who who's committing crimes and who people are, because I think that for far too long as Caymanians, we have had this mentality that if we believe that somebody else is committing the crimes, that it's okay because they're not one of us. They're not a Caymanian. So if somebody's shot in the head and they're dead, somehow it's better because they're not a Caymanian. And I don't quite understand this, because to me, a loss of a life is a loss of a life. And the Cayman Islands has become so incredibly diverse. So you have people for many, many years now who have intermarried with other people from all over the place. So you can't necessarily look at someone anymore and say whether they're a Caymanian and they're not a Caymanian. So, I'm looking at this young man and he could be just as Caymanian as me, probably. I mean, I don't really know. I'm a little bit older. So obviously a lot of people can still look at me and figure out kind of who I'm for, because, my dad would have been probably like in his 80s or 90s or whatever by now, if he was still alive. But Caymanians are a diverse group of people. So, chances are he probably is a Caymanian. He grew up here. He probably, is from the district of Georgetown, West Bay. Probably not East End, because East Enders you can still kind of identify an East Ender for a large part of it. But, so a lot of these guys have intermingled and what's the word I'm looking for? They've intermingled and married with other people. And so, I don't know where his mom is from. I don't know if his dad is a West Bayer and his mama came from Jamaica, whatever, but he's a Caymanian. I feel confident in saying that, but I think we have to be very, very cautious in our desire to always want to put the blame on somebody else. Like it shouldn't make you feel any better to say that this young man doesn't look like a Caymanian or he's not a Caymanian. This is a problem that's happening in the Cayman Islands. So even if we had a situation where it was being committed by foreigners, like all the crime, which isn't the case. I sit in court every single day. These are Caymanians that are committing these crimes. But even if that was the case, my point is, how does it matter? Because they're here. The vast majority of them are not work permit holders. So they're here as a result of people, marrying them, integrating them into the community, having children with them. And now it's the children of these relationships that have become hardcore criminals. So, I understand the sentiment that, well, they're not a multi-generational Caymanian. Maybe they're just first generation, but they're still a Caymanian. And I think that when we seek to talk about the fact that, they're not a Caymanian, we're not addressing the real issues. Because what does that mean? What's the point of saying that this young man doesn't look like a Caymanian, so I don't think he's a Caymanian? Does that make it any better this morning that we have another murder that we're going to be adding to the list of murders for 2022? I don't think so. Does it make a difference in how we're going to be addressing crime in this country and what the long-term solutions are? Well, it shouldn't be the case, right? We should be just as concerned whether this person's a Caymanian by piece of paper, a Caymanian by birth, a Caymanian by exorcism. I don't really care, quite frankly. And that's going to tie into the next part of our conversation a bit later on about employment and, Caymanians versus non-Caymanians hiring people in jobs. So good morning, buenos dias, Señora Alba. ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien. Celine says, good morning, Cayman. Good morning, Sandy. Have a safe and blessed day. God bless you all. Andine, good morning. Andine says, CMR, you are most of us voice. I think it's time for the RCAPS to bring in help before more innocent people get killed. Marshall makes the point about a lot of these guys going out on the boats who can't swim. Yeah, I mean, that's always a peculiar situation. And, again, I guess people don't think logically when they get into crime or they decide to be a boat runner or drug runner or whatever, that they could get into a lot of trouble out in the high seas or even just in the North Sound. And your inability to swim, but I'm told even if you can swim, going overboard in the North Sound at night is a very perilous situation. But definitely, you wouldn't get me running that kind of a boat situation if I couldn't swim. But once again, these guys are not making the kind of decisions from the perspective that we are thinking. And so it makes it very difficult to stand in judgment. All I know is there are consequences for your actions, folks. And sometimes the consequences are that you're running a drug boat and you will not make it to your final destination for more reason than one. And authorities have said to us that these guys know that once they've been spotted, they start to unload, their contraband, whether it's weapons or drugs, and they start to throw everything overboard. So Felicia, good morning, my dear. How are you? Everton is joining us. He says you guys have to nip the crime situation in the butt. It's getting out of control. That country used to be so peaceful, and you guys have to get a control of the situation real quick. Now, quite interestingly enough, we continue to hear that there are a number of people who are committing these crimes, and in fact, a very small number. Yep. So here we go. He's Caymanian, child. All right. Everybody send me the photo of him. So I guess we'll soon put it up because y'all already gonna know who it is anyway. So here you know. So this person says, Sandra, be silent because they know, like Sandy know what she's talking about. I understand he's my uncle's grandson. His grandmother is from Honduras, but he's born and raised right here in West Bay. Boom. Where's the mic drop for that one, folks? For those of you who are thinking that this would have been somebody from somewhere else. These are Caymanians. You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm telling you. Kaboom. There it is. Mic drop. Truth bomb. Truth bomb. From West Bay. There we go. All right. I don't know how that makes anybody feel better. I mean, do you feel different or better knowing that he's a Caymanian now? One of our own? People continue to ask the RCIPS why they don't release the photo of the persons involved in Mr. Elliott's murder. They have video footage. And so people are asking, why not release that? Because maybe people can recognize something from the video footage. And I think that that's right. A lot of times people recognize outfits, mannerisms, and the like. Yep, that's his name. We soon tell you, folks. Just stay tuned here. So, I think that at the end of the day, so yes, I think that at the end of the day, folks, that could be useful. So I'm not sure that would be one of the questions. In fact, that we would ask the RCIPS is why don't they do that? Why don't they release that information? So I don't know. I tell you what, I'm going to go out on a limb this morning. This is a big limb, and I'm going to send the Commissioner of Police our link right now to say, why don't you just come on the show and talk to the people? Like right now. I don't know how much thinking it requires for you to plan this sort of stuff. I'm sending him an email right now. Here's the link. I don't know. These authorities, they feel like they have to plan, although a 30-minute notice at a meeting isn't exactly planning, but they do seem like that they have to really think hard about these things. To me, you're on the forefront of crime fighting. In other jurisdictions around the world, when a major murder or major incident happens, right away they hold a press conference and they're in front of tons of media. They're being asked questions. It's not the type of situation where you need a whole lot of preparation. You call these meetings with the open media, and they just sit there and ask you questions. Like I don't really understand why it has to be so controlled. If you can't answer a question because it's going down a line of inquiry that would compromise your investigation, then you simply say, can I answer that question? But the people want to hear directly from those who are supposed to be handling crime fighting and who are supposed to be in a position of of resolving these issues. Now, the platform that we have makes it super easy to join the show at any given time. So let's see. I've sent an email, extended the invite. Come on the show right now. We're ready for you. Ruby, good morning to you, my dear. So, oh gosh, Miss Iva says the chicken's going after my mangoes. I better go. So good morning, Kimmy. Good morning to Tommy. Maria is watching. Thank you so much, Miss Maria and Shirley. Miss Charlene said, boy, the numbers in here this morning for real. Wow, no disrespect, Sandra, but just on Facebook itself. Yeah, we do have between Facebook and YouTube almost 400 people now watching the program. And I hate to say it, but whenever a major incident like this happens, that's when people tune in. I mean, when we're talking about some of the solutions and the issues that we're having otherwise, people get busy. It has to be a concerted and continued effort for us to address these issues. This is really an indictment on us. It's not the first time. So when people say, oh my God, we've had 2 murders already this year, or whatever, I'm like, listen, as Blake said earlier on his show, back in 2002, we had something like 7 murders in 1 year. Last year, we had mass shootings with multiple people being gunned down at 2 different incidents. So the crime, it's not even a crime wave. It is just seems like we're at a high point right now a little bit. And so this is one of the reasons why we really need to start to address these issues and try to find out what the authorities are doing. Now, listen, all day yesterday, we were talking about the Yolanda Ford report, which is very, very interesting about what causes crime in this community. And the interesting thing about this, folks, the predisposing factors to criminality in the Cayman Islands, this is a good report, and every single person should read all 273 pages of this. If you're an elected official and you have not read this report, you need to get voted out of office, like on a serious note, right? Because clearly you're not interested in being part of the solution, because some of the things that are in here really come to policy making, which is where the politicians come in now. That's their expertise, and changing the way that we as a community think. Mr. Thomas, who's an MP for Soka has me really paranoid about this word now, the pronunciation of Bermuda. I think I got it. He's an MP in that country. He actually sent me, he was on the show yesterday in case you missed it. So he sent me something this morning, which said a headline that essentially says that a lot of people, we're always talking about, not everybody's going to be a doctor and a professional and whatever. And so technical and vocational training is really, really important. Well, guess what? Just posted in the one of the Jamaican newspapers, April the 25th, a couple of days ago, there's an article here that says fewer students opt for technical and vocational training due to stigma. So, wow, because the practice is viewed negatively in society. So we don't have a technical and vocational issue in terms of there is no technical and vocational training available. It's that there are people who don't want to take technical and vocational courses, because in our communities, it's like if you're not dressed up in a tie, in a suit, and you have a job like a mechanic or a plumber and you're going to get your hands dirty, there is a societal stigma attached to that. And it's not just the Cayman Islands, it's Jamaica, it's other places. And so you have to overcome that stigma, which, that goes into your thinking, your brain. How do we think about these things? And what are we saying to our kids about certain professions? That's deep. That's not something you can just change overnight. That's not something that you set up a mechanic course at ABC Mechanics, Automotive, and all of a sudden, that's going to go away. So we got a lot to do here. And every single politician who has any degree of influence in this community should be on the airwaves, should be on their platforms, harping on these issues consistently. There is nothing wrong with being a plumber. That's a noble job. Listen, the first man I call when there's an issue is my plumbing man. I got a leak, I got a faucet that needs to be changed out, and he makes good money. We all need carpenters and the current construction boom in the Cayman Islands. People are working and making, some of them making more money than y'all sitting down with a suit and tie as a bank teller or as a quote unquote bank manager. So we need to have these conversations over and over and over again, because you can't say something one time to people. When you understand the psychology of thought, you cannot say something once to people and be like, oh yeah, they got it, they understand, it's a done deal. People need constant enforcement. So reinforcement. So in order for that to happen, these are conversations that we need to be having. And I think that, a lot of the influencers in this community include politicians. You influence the way people think and you influence people in your community. And there are also other people who can influence people in the community. If you are a successful business owner, you are a successful mechanic, you are a successful plumber, get on the airwaves, call me. I will give you this platform. Jonathan Webster running his own little business, folks. Get in contact with me so we can show young people examples of successes in those fields. And that these people are hardworking individuals. They make a good living. They're able to support a family. And there's no shame in that game. Everyone that we're applauding and trying to put up on a pedestal, oh, they have to be some big time corporate manager, some hedge fund, this and that. Really? There are other businesses in this world that make money. It's not just corporate Cayman. And those are the messages that we need to get out there. We need to encourage young people. And this is going to segue quite nicely, actually, into this post that popped off last night on Facebook that I want to talk about here in a minute. We need to encourage young people to want to work in quote unquote non-traditional businesses, but the vast majority of small businesses are service-based businesses. It's not corporate, whatever. It's not being a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. Here's the joke. Let me give you all an example, right? So as a child, this is a personal example. As a child, I wanted to be a lawyer. It had nothing to do with money. I didn't even know what lawyers made. I just felt like that was a profession based on kind of what I was experiencing at the age of 8, 9 years old. I was like, you know what? I feel like I could be a lawyer. And I always saw myself on the advocacy side of things, not in corporate. I mean, I didn't even know anything about corporate law. All right. I didn't even have a concept as a child of what corporate law is. And so, I went to the US, I went through school, I completed my first degree. I dabbled through volunteerism in the court system. And I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is my love. This is my passion. Right now, come back to the Cayman Islands, say, right, the practicalities of life. I'm going to go to law school. When I heard the Cayman Islands had a law school, and I was thinking after my initial degree, where do I go? What do I do? I could have gotten into any school in Florida because I had Judge Castor, my mentor. He was like, I'll write you a reference letter. You got the grades. You want to go to Stetson Law School. You want to go to University of Florida. Any law school in Florida, you let me know and you're in. And so I looked at it and I said, well, the thing about going to law school in the US is it's very, very expensive. And you're going to have tons of debt the second you come out. I could go to the Cayman Islands. They have a law school. It's a good program. Liverpool University. I could come out, not have so much debt, and gives me an opportunity to return home, reconnect with family, get to know where I'm from, the whole 9 yards. So I opted to return. Then I had a stark reality shift, which it's like, okay, you still got to pay for it. Let's get a scholarship. The people who were offering the scholarships and doing the most at that time were the corporate side of law. So I said, okay, let me do it and kind of see where it goes. So I got a full scholarship from Maples and Calder. I went to law school. I finished law school. And then as I'm learning about this corporate world and I'm seeing the Cayman Islands top law firm and what happens there, I'm going, wow, I'm not sure that this is what I envisioned for my life. This isn't what I want, actually. But every Caymanian, that's the dream. When you hear Caymanians saying that they want to go to law school, 99% of them have no interest in stepping foot in a courthouse. They don't want to fight for people's rights constitutionally or otherwise, right? They don't even want to prosecute people if they can help it. Most Caymanians who are in the legal profession, if they can get a directorship based, working on these foreign transactions, all these, what do they call them? Airplane transfers and multi-million and billion-dollar deals. And, it's a bunch of shuffling of paper and signing off on contracts. And that's what they want. That's the golden egg. And I'm sitting there in the midst of it going, wow, I'm looking around. I don't see a whole lot of happy people. I don't see people who are being fulfilled. All the money in the world doesn't fulfill you. That's the reality of that type of life. So you do it because what? You're trying to keep up with the Joneses. You're trying to, And so one day in June, I had sat my law school exams. My father was on his deathbed. And I said at the time, to him, because my goal was always to go to law school. And as he's dying, I said to him one day, I said, literally in the hospital, Chrissy Tomlinson, I said, I want you to know that I passed my law school exams. I passed my final exams. And he's like, he couldn't really speak too much. And he just kind of grabbed my hand and squeezed my hand. He's like, yeah, I knew you could do it. Because the year before, I almost sat out a year because he was sick. And he basically hid how serious his condition was. He had stomach cancer. And he hid that from me because he said to me, I said, I can not take my exams. I can come to Miami with you. You tell me what you want me to do. And he said, no, you sit your exams. He said, you continue with your exams, right? Don't lose this year. Don't set yourself back. And I said, all right. So I did it. Following year now, third year exams just come in and he's on his dying bed. Literally, I had law school graduation on the Saturday and buried my father on the next day, on the Sunday. That's how the events just happened, right? Life doesn't care. Life doesn't care that I am, going through an emotionally tough time. Life just happens. And on the one day I'm celebrating this achievement, something I've always wanted to do, can't even have my dad there. And on the next day, he's already dead. We're burying him. And that's just how life is. So I was sitting there and thinking about in that moment, because when you see somebody take their last breath, like you see the air leave somebody's body, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. You have a reality shift and you come to appreciate other things in life as being more important than a certain job, a certain amount of money. None of that stuff can buy you an extra day on this earth. Your wellness, your health, your life, you can't put a price tag on. And I was sitting there going, wow, he knows that I'm done, but am I where I want to be? Is this what my life is going to be? Working 18 hours a day, giving my time to Maples and Calder. They're still treating you like shit because you're a Caymanian. There's this proverbial glass ceiling. You will ever only get so far in this organization. You have partners in there who have the audacity to call people the N-word and tell you that when they say jump, you must say how high. There was all these things. I thought that honestly, this isn't for me. Let's be honest here. I'm really just not the type of person who sits down and rolls over and be like, okay, you can take advantage of me. And I saw myself, I'm like, if I stay in this environment at that time, that was what my future was going to be like. I would have no voice. You can't call into the radio stations if you're a lawyer at Maples and Calder. You can't get that involved in your community. You can't rock any boats. You can't, do anything with politics. It's just so controlling. I said, this isn't for me. So in that moment, seeing my father take his last breath, I made a decision and the course of my life changed. And this is tying into this whole concept of you can have this big cushy job. And I'll never forget this. I don't know if Teresa Lewis is listening to this show this morning, Teresa Pitcairn now, but she can tell you when I resigned and I told Teresa I was leaving, Teresa said to me, she said, Sandy, why are you leaving? She said, people like myself and Oliver and others before you have fought so hard for someone like you, a little girl from Georgetown, a Black girl from Georgetown who wouldn't have even, decades before had a chance in Maples except as a legal secretary, unless you screwing somebody and sleeping with somebody. And I said to her, I'll never forget this conversation. I said, Teresa, here's the thing. I'm at this critical junction in my life, right? I can get out now. What ends up happening is we stay and we get the big houses, we get the fancy cars, we have kids in private school, and you have all these obligations that you can't just walk away from a Maples and Calder job because you've got bills to pay, you've got family obligations. It's not that easy then. And I said, right now, I don't have any of that, right? I can walk away and I can have a sense of personal freedom. And I walked away. And not only did I walk away, but I said, you know what? I'm going to, after a couple, tries at other things, I said, nope, I'm going to work for myself. And I created a business, not CMR. I created my business, Micromatrix. I did training, professional development, and all of that has led to where I am today. Now, here's the irony of it. There's some Maples and Calder lawyers, I don't know, they're making $10,000, $12,000 a month. Folks, in my position, I could make 5, 6 times that. It depends on a lot of different factors, but there's no limit working for myself, what I can make and what I can pull in. So the irony is, while you're out there chasing the dollar and chasing the money, instead of chasing your passion and what you love to do. And when I started CMR, I would harp on this, and I still harp on this. This is a passion, not a paycheck. Now it's starting to pay some bills. That's great. Oh, can Sandy make $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 a month off of CMR? Anything is possible. Lots of people want to advertise on the platform. That's fantastic. But that's not what is being chased here. You chase what you love, where your passion is. And then the other successes naturally will flow from that. Ironic, isn't it? I'm not sitting behind a desk at a Maples and Calder, at a Walker's or anybody else's law firm with them telling me what to do with every minute of my day, with me giving them 18 hours a day of my time away from family, kids, spouses, community, and you have no say. So stop teaching our young people that they have to be pigeonholed into this perception of what success looks like. Success can be so many different things. Professionally, gardening, right? Owning a small mechanic shop. I look at people like Miss Irma Arch. She started her business from scratch over 30 years ago. Now she's Cayman's #1 shipping company that doesn't actually own a shipping, like ships. Isn't that amazing? Female entrepreneurs, business owners, Sharon Smiths of the world. These are the people that we need to get into our schools and have conversations with our young people to say, this is what success looks like. It's not a suit and tie. It's someone who works in a service industry. They provide services to other businesses, because all those suit and tie people, they need people. They need mechanics. They need salespeople, right? They need marketing professionals. They need somebody to come and clean their house, their oversized house. And this is what we need. Our young people need to hear these stories. Stop stifling them and making them believe in career classes that, okay, you want to be an accountant, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a banker. No, there's so much more to life than that. Denny, my apologies for keeping you on hold so long. Good morning.
Morning. I guess you figured I have patience. What you were just saying there is the long-winded explanation of what people mean when they say, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Mm-hmm. And the reality is... And
I know it sounds so cliche, and I'm sure young people, when they hear that, they're like, oh, that's cliche. Let me just say something about that, because I was in Fort Lauderdale the other day, and my husband has some family there. And we went to, this is the first time I'm actually meeting these particular cousins, right? And they have a big, beautiful house, beautiful pool, living the life. And so we started talking about professionally what they do. And one cousin is a counselor, and she works with children in particular, and she counsels children. And she was saying, some days it's really tough emotionally. And I said to her, I said, she started asking me what I do, and I told a little bit about what I do. And I said, we said this exact same thing about, when you love what you do. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not hard work and sacrifices to be made along the way. And I think that when people say that, there's this assumption that when you do what you love, everything just falls in your lap. And that's not the case. So you will have before the feast, you will have the famine. And you will have sacrifices that you have to make with your business. And you will understand that you can't just waltz into a situation and command, top dollar. And, you've got to work hard, and you've got to work smart, and you've got to work your way up to things. But there's nothing wrong with that. And when you do genuinely love and enjoy what you do, it doesn't feel like work, but
right,
it is.
But you mean as opposed to working hard and making sacrifices when you're working for someone else?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you see, at the end of the day, the reality is this. It's either you're going to go and work for someone else and build their dream,
Yeah.
or you're going to work for yourself and build your own dream.
Yep.
That's the reality. And I want to press on this issue about trades, right? Some people have an absolutely wrong impression that trades are for people that are stupid.
Exactly.
Let me give you an example. Do you think you can be an idiot and do the math and physics involved in being an electrician?
Nope. You get yourself killed.
You think that you can do a good job of plumbing without getting sued if you don't understand why it's important to follow the rules, because these rules are established by science? It's not for fools. Maybe what they're actually saying is they're not smart enough to do the trade, so they go and sit behind a computer and hand out money as a teller.
Yep.
Right? Maybe that's what's being said. But it's wrong to think that the trades don't require knowledge. They do. But I want to talk about something more painful, which is the crime that's taking place. Now, I noticed a couple of days ago, I think it was, you made a comment that you weren't really too much in favor of people arming themselves. But
not sure I said that, but okay.
Well, gave that impression in what you said.
Well,
it wasn't a long, extensive thing. But the point I'm making is that there's no consequences to these crimes, right? And so they feel that they can just walk in and do whatever to you in your business or in your home, and just get away with it because they're convinced that society is programmed to believe just do whatever they tell you, give them whatever they want, and everything will be okay, except when they kill you. Right? I hold a completely different view. I don't see anybody getting up in the morning, going into the kitchen, turning the burners on the stove up on high, and once they're nice and hot, they just put their hands down on the burner. You know why they don't do that? Because there are immediate consequences. And we need to have a real deterrent to crime. Let me put it this way. Instead of innocent people being killed, kill the criminals. All right? And when I say that, what I mean is, if they come into your place and they decide that they're going to have no respect for people's lives, injure people, kill people, okay. Then the next time you come back, we'll give you a taste of your own medicine. Now, people would say, but, well, I didn't know that businesses could have a firearm for protection. Yes, they can. As if you turn to page 9 of the firearms regulations and you scroll down the page, it asks you if you have a secure place to keep your firearm in your home. And then in parentheses, it has or place of business. So if you couldn't have it in your business for protection, why would that be in the regulations?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But let me tell you what's actually happening. RCIPS is deliberately brainwashing people into believing that you cannot do that. It's wrong, but there are a number of things that when I look at it, well, I understand that Caymanians, to an extent, are afraid to assert themselves. And the truth of the matter is that you are either going to be in a position of where you're capable of defending yourself or
Mm-hmm.
you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you wish to be at the mercy of criminals, I'm not going to argue with you about that. Where my argument's going to come in is when you tell me that I must also be at the mercy of a criminal. Because I hold the view that I have the right to defend myself against those unlawful acts. And I hold a further view. I think society would be better off with me alive than certain criminals alive.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong in my perspective?
Well, I think that the issue here is gun ownership and safe gun usage, even for well, especially for the good citizens, because criminals will always have access to guns, is a very, very complex issue. Just last week, there was a report that came out that showed that the number one cause of death amongst young people in the United States of America is by gun violence, by guns. And so, I think when you look at a culture that embraces their what amendment right is it? Third, fourth, fifth? Which one is it? Second. To bear arms, and then you see where they are compared to other places in the world. I think a discussion needs to be had that you're now at the back end of it, where you're trying to say, well, how do I stop the criminals from coming into my house and harming me? And the way to do that is for me to be able to bear arms and to have a gun. My perspective.
No, I'm not saying that's the way. I'm saying that's one of the prongs that you have to have. I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
The situation in Ukraine validated the Second Amendment. Tell me that as so.
Say that again. Sorry. The
Ukraine situation
mm-hmm.
validated the Second Amendment.
Well, I mean, I think the Ukraine situation is very, very different. That's an invasion of an entire country, and they do have a military.
And you think that we're beyond that, right?
Well, then the regiment and the Coast Guard and the RCIPS and the UK,
Ukraine has a military too. But yet they had to, in an emergency, change their law and just start handing rifles out to their citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you what the con of doing it that way is. If you have people who are capable of defending themselves properly, long before something like that happens, it has two pros. One is it's a deterrent. And secondly, it means that the people are more capable of being more proficient with the rifle than if they just picked it up a month ago. You're not a good shooter after a month of shooting, is the point I'm making. That's very short-sighted. Let me put it another way. If it was correct that the RCIPS could actually protect people, I would have to ask you, well, by what means could they do that? Because in the world I live in, not their delusional world, I realized that in order for them to prevent me from losing my life, they would have to be in close proximity to me to be able to do that. And I don't know if we have enough police officers in the country to be next to most people to keep them safe. I would venture to say we don't. It means they can't prevent you. And what they really mean when they say protect you is to come and clean up the mess and bury you and say, well, could you please help us by telling us who did this? No, I'm interested in preventing the loss of my life, which means, think about this for a second. What is the most important constitutional right we have? The right to life. And if we have, and if that is in fact the most important right, which I think it is, because unless you have life, none of the other rights matter. And so if it is the most important right, then the question is, well, do I have a right to defend that life? And if I have a right to defend that life, then the question would be, should I have a means by which I can defend that life? Or would you prefer me to take a knife to a gunfight? You want me to be at a disadvantage to criminals? Really? That sounds
All
like
right,
a
Denny.
crock of foolishness to me.
Leave us there with those comments. I think your position is very clear. Where you stand on your Second Amendment American right.
No, I'm not Second Amendment American right. We have that right here in Cayman in law already. So I'm not talking about anything foreign. If you want to understand where it is, read section 18(1)(a) of the firearms law.
Okay.
So, but the point that I'm making is, you can follow the police if you want, and you can believe that they're capable of protecting you. But by the time you find out that they're not able to prevent you from losing your life, it will most likely be too late. I want them to dispute that.
All right, my dear. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, folks, you can call into the program. 936-2626 is the number. Feel free to call at any time. Denny obviously is a proponent of the right to bear arms, and he's saying that that is the only way that you can protect yourself from criminals. So a very, very interesting, not the only way, but it's certainly a primary way of being able to protect yourself from criminals. We're not going to go too deep into this conversation, except to say that several days ago, 5 days ago, in fact, a report came out that says gun deaths was the leading killer of U.S. children in 2020. So check out the pewresearch.org, which has interesting information about this. But the U.S. has a very, very interesting gun culture, and it hasn't necessarily served them well. I mean, the top countries in the world, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too deep, but I just want to show you guys something when it comes to this concept. And listen, I lived in the United States of America. I get it. I understand their love for firearms and their love to bear arms and all this kind of stuff. But have a look at this. This is statistically what is happening in America, right? Calculating the number of guns in private hands around the world. This is based on 390 million guns in circulation in 2018. And this was a Swiss-based leading research. So the top 10 civilian gun-owning countries in the world: United States, number 1, Yemen, number 2, Switzerland, Finland, Cyprus, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Uruguay, Canada, and Austria. In the US, far by almost 50%. Far out shines anybody else. So the US ratio of 120.5 firearms per 100 residents, and it's up from 88 per 100 in 2011, far surpasses that of other countries around the world. And then the next headline, like I said, that just came out last week, is that guns are the leading cause of death of U.S. children and teens in 2020, which is the year that they have the latest information for. So it is a 29.5% increase in 2019. More than 4,300 people ages 1 to 19 died of firearm-related injuries in 2020. So if guns are really keeping a society safe, the United States of America should be the safest place in the world based on the number of private owners that have guns. And yet we see that more U.S. children and teens in 2020 were killed by firearm than through vehicle crashes, drug overuse, or cancer. And this, again, is research based on a report that was just published on last week, Wednesday, from the New England Journal of Medicine. So the evidence, the actual research-based evidence isn't there. We can all think of these anecdotal stories. Oh, somebody comes into my house. Remember the old man in Georgetown? The burglar comes into his house. He shoots him dead. That was a win for the good people, for the citizens of this country. But in the vast majority of cases, I'll share the link here on our social media platform, you have people, children in particular, who are children and adolescents who are dying at an alarming rate because of firearms and easy access to firearms. Firearm-related deaths amongst all Americans was up 13.5%, totaling almost 50,000 deaths. And this change, it says, was driven largely by firearm homicides, which saw a 33.4% increase. And that made up the majority of firearm deaths among children and teens. And most who were killed by firearms were 14 years and older. So how is it that owning a firearm, like I said, Danny and I, we can have a whole show on this, but just my preliminary thoughts is, how is that really the solution for you to be safe? A study published in February found that gun ownership increased during the pandemic. And as a result, more than 5 million children under 18 became newly exposed to guns in their household from January of 2019 to April of 2021. All right, Danny's calling back. Danny, keep it short this time. Give me the short version.
Research how many hospitals and doctors kill people by just simply making mistakes.
Okay. But it's still not the number one cause of death for children and teens.
Just research it.
Okay.
Just research it later.
All righty. All right, folks. So let's read some of your comments that are coming through on social media. Miss Charlene says, Sandra, the real question here regarding the appropriate dress yesterday. Oh, let's get to that in just a second, Charlene. Let's hold off on that. Ali says, what does a Caymanian look like? Well, let me show you what a Caymanian looks like. Let's have a look at this young man. Let's have a look here at this young man. Since y'all want to know what a Caymanian looks like, we can certainly have a look, because it's a good question. There's no such thing as us being able to identify. I mean, I shared a story with you guys recently about an old time Caymanian who could look at me and say, yeah, you're Rick Solomon. That doesn't really happen anymore. Caymanians are so intermingled and commingled, and in a lot of instances, I got to tell you the truth, for good reason, the gene pool has been diversified. You know, the Cayman disease is almost a thing of the past. Not quite, but we're certainly getting there. So here's a young man that lost his life last night. I'm going to show you what he looks like. And this is the face of a Caymanian. So, I mean, I don't know what else a Caymanian is supposed to look like. I'm just trying to, my computer's moving very slow at the moment. Let me see if I can speed it up. In the meantime, let's read a few more comments. Charlene says, deliberately no answer to the main time, but question to question, what do you think a birth Caymanian looks like? Carol says in the UK, they release CCTV footage all the time. Not sure why it's so secret here. Certainly doesn't help the investigations or our trust that the police know what they're doing. Moya says, good morning, Sandy. What you said is true. This is one of the most discussed topics in psychology, nature versus nurture. Sometimes bad environmental factors are a way people, as well as the way that people are grown and exposed to from birth, bad or good values, causes some people to be the way they are. And that is what we as Caymanian society need to look at and address. We have way too many bad integrated values and standards and breakdowns in our society at an alarming pace. And the bad values are becoming and then it got cut off. Well, listen, I told you guys yesterday, you look at the Yolanda Ford report and it says it as plain as day. It couldn't get more clear. It's the parents and their values that are being passed on to children that is criminalizing this country. So if you hope to address the real issue, you need to get into people's homes. You need to see the caliber. And I understand the sentiment that we're not, and I say it all the time, that we have enough of our own bad seed running around the place. And on top of that, those same bad seeds are linking up with bad seeds from overseas, but we don't have to import any bad seeds to see what's going on here. We have it. So yes, these people are Caymanians, folks. Don't feel any way about it. These are our people. Right? Let me show you. WhatsApp seems to be really slow today. But this is the young man here. His name is Kane Thomas. Now that name sounds familiar. I feel like either he's been in court before or I've heard this name before. And this is what we're talking about here, folks. So this young man has had his life snuffed out, shot in the head last night. I don't even know how old he is. We can probably get a fix on an age here shortly. And now another family is mourning the death of a loved one. So there's your answer. What does a Caymanian look like? That's it. That's what a Caymanian looks like. Right? Now, I now know why this young man, why he sounds familiar, why his name sounds familiar. Wow. Of course he's been in the court system. He is the young man. Remember the robbery that they had? All right, I think this was actually the home invasion. Okay, back it up. Back in October of 2019, there's a report here of a man who's been charged with a catalog of crimes related to home invasion that took place in Prospect in 2017, told the court that he was giving evidence because he'd had enough of being threatened by one of his co-conspirators. Kane Thomas is believed to have been one of 4 men involved in a crime spree that ended with a violent, aggravated burglary of a couple's home in Patrick Island over 2 years ago. So of course we remember this. So in 2019, he completed his second day of evidence, setting out the details of the crime in which he admits that he played a significant role. Thomas told the judge that he decided to come to court and give evidence about the crime because he was sick of being threatened by, at the time, Elmer Wright, to tell lies about the crime so that Wright, who had denied the charges and is currently on trial, could go free. Now, you guys remember Elmer Wright is the same one when his trial started that they had security all over the courthouse. So y'all remember this? The helicopter every day that he was being transported, the helicopter was going up in the air, and he had a significant, he's only 26 years old, a couple of years ago, so he's still a young man, but they had significant armed presence just trying to get him to trial. And this is also the home invasion that just last year, Shane Connor from East End, 44 years old, was sentenced to 12 years in prison for. Because he was the fourth man that it took him a while to figure out that he was man number 4. And eventually he was caught and convicted a number of years after the other ones. So this is a whole conspiracy of these guys out there doing stuff. And so this young man now is dead. What a handsome fella. But you keep asking me, what does a Caymanian look like? Well, there you go. Not posing in the best way in the picture, that's for sure. But that's a Caymanian face, folks. Life taken from him, just like that. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, Elma Wright was transferred to a UK prison as well back in 2020. And the reason why this keeps happening is because people are saying, listen, these guys have the ability to still command things from prison. So Cayman's prisons are not a deterrent. They're not going to stop anybody. What's the solution? Do we have to bring back the gallows? Do we have to bring back corporal punishment? A life for a life, an eye for an eye? So if you're convicted of killing someone, do we need to do what the Americans do? If we believe that everything else they do works, maybe we need to start putting you in an electric chair. And maybe we need to start putting some concoction in your arm to take you out. What's the solution? But I'm saying that all of those things are reactive, and that's at the tail end. You've already created the monster. I'm just trying to say, how do we get ahead of the monster? How do we stop it? Because it is difficult, if not impossible, to stop a criminal at this stage. These guys are knee deep in the ish. How can we save this young man? Look at that face. That's some mother's child. Right? Although he's there shooting the bird in this picture and not looking the most innocent, that baby face of his is still very much innocent, folks. Some mother, some grandmother, some siblings this morning, cousins, are mourning the life of this young man. And regardless of what the little we know about him or whatever, I'm sure at some point in his life, everybody thought, oh, he has a future that is going to be positive. He can do things. Unbelievable. There you have it. That's the young man that everyone says was killed last night. Folks, let's take a brief commercial break. And when we come back, we'll continue reading some of your comments. The phone lines are also open at 936-2626.
At Innovative Building Products, we provide professional builders and homeowners with the highest quality materials from top brands worldwide. Tiling tools, waterproofing systems, thin sets, self-levelers, grout, along with porcelain floor and wall tiles. Our products are 100% guaranteed, promise 100% satisfaction, and beat competitor pricing. Pallets of materials are ready to go. Quick and easy convenience to get you in and out within 5 minutes.
All right, folks, we do have a caller who's joining the program. Good morning, Colin. Welcome to the Cold Hard Truth.
Sandra,
Yes, ma'am.
morning.
Good morning.
This is the mother of the boy that you had up on your news this morning.
My condolences, my dear.
I'm asking you kindly not to have anything negative to say about my son, please.
Yes. I just said, first of all, my condolences. And I've just said, this is somebody's child. This is somebody's son.
I heard that.
And I'm very, very sorry for your loss this morning.
But I can't take no negative talk right now.
Yes,
I don't have it in me to take it.
I understand. I'm very sorry. As a mother, I can't even imagine your pain, and her heart goes out to you.
Have a good day,
All
Sandra.
right, my dear, you too. Folks, as I've said, this is somebody's child. And I appreciate her calling in and reminding us that this is somebody's child. It's horrible. Mitzi says, totally correct. My brother initially wanted to be a chef, and his mother berated him for that. Sad. What? Chefs are the most amazing people in the world. And that's such a great business. Shani, good morning. I feel like because it's a lot of family here, someone knows someone, they're afraid to send out the footage. This is in the comments earlier, so we're a little bit behind in comments. We do have another caller to the program this morning. Good morning, caller, and welcome to the Cold Hard Truth.
Good morning, Sandra. How you doing?
Oh boy, I'm okay. How are you?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say condolences to the mother. I can't even imagine. As a father, I literally can't even imagine what she's feeling right now. And we could all hear the pain in her voice. But like you said, you mentioned about, the kids going into the crime and whatever. Let me just share a light on that, right? A little bit. Um, First of all, cost of living has gone up tremendously in Cayman. Gas prices is going up. Second, we have a lot of Caymanians that don't have jobs, or if they have jobs, they have to work 2 to 3 jobs. And of course, we all know that some or majority of the women here are single mothers, right? And um, they're doing 2 or 3 jobs and then expect the father to jump in when they feel like it, to jump in and take care of the kids. And like I like to explain to everyone, kids are not asked to be brought here. And I have 4, and I made a lot of sacrifices for my 4 because they were not asked to be brought here, but I am going to do the best that I can for my 4. As a person who was raised up with a single mother, I remember my mother having 2 or 3 or 4 jobs just to make sure that I had food on the table, or I went to my classes, or Miss Glida class, or piano lessons, with whatever the case that I needed, that it got done. Right. One of the things that we have in Cayman is that our borders, and you lived in the United States, so this will you should know that CBC protects and Homeland Security protects, and the Coast Guard protects their borders, right? We have very limited, count the amount of boats, or i.e. Coast Guards, that we have in Cayman Islands to protect the 3 sister islands. They are spread thin. So anything could get between the cracks. Okay. Second of all, we had CBC, Cayman Customs, at one time had their boats, their liaison with the police. That is now taken away from them. For what reason? Beyond us. Like what my mother would say, that's beyond my pay scale. But I think that they should be the reason why they're called Custom Border Control is to protect our borders, air, land, and sea. So I think that Customs should be able to get back their boats, because I know that they get a lot of slack for the charges and whatever they might be bringing in, but that's not their call. But to protect their borders, or to protect our borders from the guns coming in, is one of the biggest things. And like what Mr. Denny said, there's a lot of homeowners that are gun owners in Cayman that have firearms, but in education to the firearms at the same time. If you educate your child to say this is what it is, it's just like you educating your daughter, with all due respect, about the kitchen and the stove and the gas stove, and not to go up, gas stove. You teach them eventually, and they will learn. So with that being said, I think CBC needs to be able to have their boats or less the Coast Guard do more patrolling and more searches because there are coming in, canoe boats are coming in, Cayman left, right, and center. I mean, if they could pass Cayman Brock, Little Cayman, and end up on West Bay Beach and they run in the boats could end up on West Bay Beach. Come on. You already broken 3 nets. You already crossed 2 islands. You know what I mean? And it's not that far from any other country to Cayman. And I'm not gonna say any nationality because not you can't just blame one nationality or whatever. You know, when they say, oh well the guns come from Jamaica, but the guns could come from the US to Jamaica to Cayman or from any other country. But when you find boats that are going missing from Cayman and they could just how many boats have went missing from Cayman Islands and end up in somewhere else? And they can't stop them because there's no protection. And I think that's one of the main things that our government needs to do. And when I'm sorry with all due respect, but when the commissioner and everyone else asking people to come forward, I mean, how many people have gotten slain because they came forward? So it is very, very sad, and it to have 2 days death. And like I said, my heart goes out to the mother, and I hope she stays strong because that is her. And as a father, I could never imagine that going through with me. So we as a community need to stick together as one and start looking out for each other. With that said, thank you so much and keep up with your good work.
Thank you, my dear. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right, folks, 936 2626 is the number to call into the program. Some very sobering remarks this morning from a number of individuals. Again, our condolences to that mother. I cannot even imagine how heavy her heart is this morning and what her pain is like. It's really horrible. Just can't even imagine. Marshall says, I'd like to know anyone in a suit and tie that is going to come and snake out our toilets or broken pipes to fix our electrical work or landscaping. You need all types of people in any field. There's nothing wrong with anyone making an honest living. Sue shares that her nephew's in IT and he makes good money. Of course. You need IT people, every business. We're going to come we're going to talk about this employment situation here in a second. So Alric says, growing up, many young people, Alric Lindsay, thank you for tuning in. Many young people were encouraged to be lawyers and accountants. Society kind of looked down on any job where you didn't wear a tie. Decades later, Cayman relies on foreign labor for construction, etc. The story could have been different. Sabrina says glass ceiling. This is in relation to my comment earlier about law firms in Cayman. She says it's more like a concrete ceiling, you mean. James, joining us from Canada, says perhaps there needs to be a vocational school or college or program built so that young people can get experience. Well, they exist. This is what I'm saying. They do exist. But just because you build it, they say build it and they will come. Well, that's not really happening at the level that it should be. So it's there, it exists. They're partnering with different mechanic programs and Inspire Cayman and others, and our young people are still not taking up these opportunities. That's where the mindset comes in. That's a problem. Elizabeth says, you're right, Sandy, and you did quite well. Keep on, girl. I'm so proud of you. Up, up, up. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Dominique, thank you. Dominique says, beautiful. Charlene says, exactly, Sandra. These are the people to be positive role models. I'm glad that Alric commented here because Alric has shared part of his story with us when he was running for political office, where, he grew up in a household with a brother who was a gangster, one of the baddest people in Cayman, I suppose, at the time. And his outcome and his life story was different. I mean, I found it so interesting when Alric shared that if he was being picked on in school, or if he had issues, he didn't even necessarily want to go tell his brother about it because his brother was the type of guy who, you could end up seriously hurt or killed, I suppose, if you were messing with his little brother. and he chose a different course for his life. He saw that to not end up having that same path in life, that he had to make some different decisions. And the one decision that you can make that could change the outcome of your life is to get your education. I can't say it enough for young people. And when I say get your education, that piece of paper does not have to be an accountant or a lawyer or law degree. It could be your certification as an electrician. It could be your plumbing examinations that you just passed. But you need some sort of a qualification in any profession, right? You don't just wake up one day and say, tomorrow I'm going to go fix your car. All these cars, as Denny said, you got to be smart to work on cars in this day and age, even before. Because now it's all computerized and you got to know how to work systems and work computers. And, you want to go and work for Mercedes as a mechanic, you have to go to the Mercedes School of Mechanics, whatever they call it. And they train you how to work on these vehicles. So yesterday afternoon, we were contacted by a young lady who said that she'd gone for an interview, and basically the interviewer, told her that criticized her work attire or her interview dress code, and said, what the young lady perceived as derogatory words. And I asked her a few follow-up questions. And I said to her, some of the questions included, I'm not familiar with this company, so tell me a little bit about who this company is, what exactly was said. The young lady's mother also reached out to me and said that essentially she was told that she was dressed too masculine, and that was what the interviewer had told her. Now, I think that that's interesting. If that is what was said, that certainly borders on being discriminatory. But at the same time, I understand that an employer in their workplace might have a certain dress code that they're encouraging people, certain dress attire. But I think really what this is about is this is how you approach a situation, especially with a young person. So the more I thought about it, here is someone who was working in a temporary job, ironically at the HSA. That temporary job came to close. And she's out there. Her contract ended on the 16th. The following week, she's out there applying for jobs and submitting her resume, going to job interviews. Sometimes we don't appreciate the hardships that young people are going through. And so once again, we are quick to judge them. I'm guilty of this myself. Why didn't you wear this? Why didn't you wear that? And we don't recognize the positivity in what they are doing. Like a lot of other young people, she could be like, oh, I'm going to sit home for a month and do nothing. Instead, she's sending out her resume and she's out there trying to find meaningful employment. So she shared that she wore work attire, a long black pants and a polo shirt and black shoes. I'm just like, okay, well, without seeing an exact photo of the outfit, in principle, I didn't necessarily see anything wrong with that. She says, that was the worst interview I've ever been to. Because this lady said to her that she was not fit for an office or clerical position because of her appearance. and that she needs to change the way that she looks and dresses. Now, the part that people hyper focused on is when she said, I'm a Caymanian and I was told this by the director of the business who's a Jamaican. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. When I first read what this young lady sent, and I actually posted it, that had the least impact on me of everything that she said. In fact, it was only after I was reading the comments where people were trying to make this a Caymanian versus a Jamaican thing again, that I went back and looked at it again. I said, oh yeah, she did say that the woman's a Jamaican. I did not even pick up on that because I don't care. I don't care. If you're Jamaican, if you're Canadian, if you're American, and you're hiring people, I think there are certain standards that you should utilize. If dress code, and we have talked about this before, in fact, back in, I want to say it was sometime early last year, I did, a bit of an on the fly video about a young lady. The situation really brought me to tears. Single mother of multiple children, not being able to get a job because, again, her work attire. Oh, you don't have on the right shoes. You can't wear open-toed shoes in an eyeglass store. Your pants had a hole in the back. For a woman who hasn't worked in years, she didn't have any clothes. And she said to them initially, when she got the job, after I get my first paycheck, I can buy a few pieces and upgrade my clothing. Everybody knows that in Cayman, it is not easy to refresh your wardrobe. It is so expensive. And if you haven't been working and you're trying to feed yourself and your children, where are you going to get money from to go clothes shopping? So here we are. We have a food pantry. Can somebody start a clothing pantry? Anytime I'm refreshing my wardrobe, folks, I go through and I pull out stuff. I did it just week before last. Tops that I hadn't even worn yet because they weren't really my style. Somebody else did the shopping for me. And I give that to other people who are less fortunate than me, who can wear it to work. And I encourage them, if you try it on, it's not your style or not your fit or whatever, give it to somebody else in need. Last year, I took out 2 big bags of stuff. And there was a young lady who reached out to me. And I drove all the way to West Bay. My poor husband's like, what bush are we going down in today? I'm like, just come. This is where she says she's at. And I dropped off the bags and she was like, oh my God, thank you so much. She went through, took out what she could use. And then she said she shared it with a lot of other people. So many of us could be part of the solution. So I'm a business owner. Someone comes to me and they're not dressed appropriately for the job. 2 things. You either have a uniform, and I've done this before. Sometimes I use video guys, whatever, and I've got CMR shirts. And I said, hey, our attire is a CMR shirt so people can identify you, and a pair of jeans or khaki pants or whatever. In the middle of an interview, when someone is already nervous and on edge, probably the last thing you should do is seek to criticize them in that moment. You guys remember yesterday what I was saying to you guys about when you talk to children or you're having a serious discussion with someone? Timing is everything, right? The time to have a conversation with someone is not when they're in an emotional state and having a moment. When you want to talk to someone about their dress code, this person's a total stranger to you. You don't know how they're going to take your comments, your mannerism, your roughness, whatever. You think you're doing them a favor. It might not be received in that way. And in fact, this poor young lady, her mother is so concerned about her. She's now trying to get her some counseling because this has had such a negative impact on her. All I'm saying to this business owner is just think twice about how you approach young people in particular who are trying their best, right? Do clothes make the man or the woman? If you really wanted to hire this young lady, you could have hired her and then said, by the way, we do have an office dress code, and we have some guidance in terms of what's appropriate and what isn't for this particular environment. And here are some suggestions. Or if you feel so strongly about how your staff look, invest in uniforms. That's why most of the banks are like, we want our staff to have a very uniform look. This is what it is. So the owner of this business, I don't know who she is. Like I said, most people I really do not know. I don't know her from the man in the moon. She could be from Timbuktu. She says she's a Caymanian. I've received other comments, interestingly enough, about her hiring practices. And I want to say to her, I don't care where you're from. If you're a Caymanian, it's actually, in my opinion, more egregious because as a Caymanian, you have a vested interest in trying to help other Caymanians who are trying to make their way. So I'm a little bit more insulted when a Caymanian doesn't do right by another Caymanian, to be honest. So telling me that you're a Caymanian and not a Jamaican is neither here nor there, except it probably is a little bit worse than my book. But I want to make it very, very clear that the post wasn't put up because she said, oh, this is a Jamaican lady, which of course, this is the direction now that this woman wants to take the conversation. Because it's easy, it's an easy conversation to have when people want to believe that Sandy's anti-Jamaican, anti-Honduran, anti-West Bay, anti-Filipino, anti-this, anti-that. And if you've been following this platform for a while, you will know without a doubt that I don't give a damn where you're from. I really don't care. Try to hold everyone to the same standard. Someone else who went to an interview said, yeah, she's Jamaican by paper. I don't care. You own a business in this community, and by law, you should be hiring Caymanians first. And if the young lady isn't qualified, because then she jumped on it and said, oh, well, she only scored whatever on her tests. This is a clerical job. And that is so interesting that that's where you come back to, because if she scored below your requirements, why would you then even take the time to interview her and the time to insult her or even make any comment at all about her dress? If somebody scores 15, 20% on your clerical tests, which is what she's claiming, in all seriousness, you're not going to hire that person. So why even go there? Why take that person down a peg about your dress code is too masculine? Does it matter? Because you have no intentions of hiring the young lady. So then she tries to take a turn at me, and y'all know on a good day, I'm not the one to joke with. Oh, you not learned nothing yet from your lawsuits? Well, actually, I've learned a lot from my lawsuits, including I ain't had to pay out a dime yet, and I haven't legally been found to be in the wrong with those defamation cases. So come again, girlfriend. Who are you talking to? But you see, it's this attitude that business owners have. Oh, you're just a lowly person. You're looking for a job from me so I can tell you what to do and I can say anything to you and treat you any kind of way. Really? Treating people with a little bit of human dignity because they work for you? Whether that's in a domestic environment, in a small business, whatever, that's too much to be asking. And then you think somehow you can take a turn at me and you can hurt my feelings? Girl, please. Not today, TD. Definitely not today. And she just kept commenting, going on and on and on. Well, here's what somebody else had to say about this person. And again, I don't care where she's from, but this individual who interviewed with her back in 2020 said, Sandy, this was like 2 minutes after the post went up. I also interviewed for the same position as 2020. So don't look like she can keep the position filled, whatever the hell she's doing. And even with my experience and qualifications in the same post, she didn't give me the job. About one of her staff was going on maternity leave soon, and she would call me for the post. When asked what's the salary, she said, when we get there, we can discuss that. She doesn't want to hire Caymanians, period. The company is a sham. It says it's for Jamaicans, ran and operated by Jamaicans. Now, this young lady who's making this comment is a Caymanian married to Jamaican with half Jamaican children. She never did call me back, even though she said that she liked me. What I'm saying is, I'm not really trying to get all up in your business, but maybe your interviewing style and how you are treating applicants isn't really the best. And perhaps work needs to start looking at how many people you're interviewing versus how many Caymanians are actually getting hired. Because it's not no high-level job. And if you have people who are qualified to do the job, some people don't necessarily test well. I don't know what happened with the test, but it's interesting that during the interview, you didn't say to the young lady, oh, well, you actually didn't really do well on the test. And that's what's going to disqualify you for this job or whatever. She claimed that she hadn't made a decision yet. So why are you telling the young lady she's dressed too masculine for you? It doesn't even make any sense. What I want to say to this young lady is not every employer is like that. There are employers who will give you a chance. There are employers who will take a chance on you. And whenever I find young people, folks, who are willing to try, we are willing to meet you halfway. We will help you. And so I asked her mother to send me her resume. I have seen the resume. The resume can be tweaked. So, for example, the last job she had, like I said, was at the HSA. And I said, well, why, what happened to that last job? Why was she there only for this period of time? And she said it was a temporary job for the COVID clinic. I said, okay, on the resume, you need to say that because people see she's only there 6 months, 8 months or whatever. They're assuming that she's just job hopping and you need to say it was a temporary job. So I'm going to take time out of my own personal schedule and help this young lady fix up her resume a little bit. We can help by giving feedback, folks, on how people are interviewing. So I attended an interview recently, and, the young lady was a little bit rough around the edges in the interview. During the interview, I didn't say to her, girl, you're a little bit rough around the edges, and that Caymanian accent is a little bit like on the unprofessional side, so we need to work on this. Days later, it's probably a week later, I went back to her and I said, she's actually getting a trial at the job. And I said, we do need to work on your communication skills. And it became apparent to me during the interview that this could be the reason why you haven't been successful at other jobs. The young lady thanked me and said, Miss Sandy, I appreciate that and I'm open to it. Let me know. I have no problems trying to improve, try to learn how to speak a little bit more professionally in the work environment, et cetera, et cetera. Not what you say, it's how you say it. And it's also when you say it. Timing is important. Saying that to someone in the middle of an interview can be taken only but one way. That's all I'm saying. Now this poor mother is concerned about the mental state of her daughter and saying that she needs a good counselor. She doesn't want her to experience any more depression. Wow. Unbelievable. Think a little bit, folks, about where someone is and what they could be going through that you just don't know about. Jasara says it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Tracy, thank you for this. Tracy says the Family Resource Center accepts clothing donations, and I've donated office attire to them before. Why is it that the Family Resource Center does all this stuff and we don't even know? Who heads up the Family Resource Center? Can we have them on the show, please? Because if the people don't know, the people don't know. I always get people like, oh, can you give me that? Because I want to send it overseas. I said, listen, we got people right here in the Cayman Islands who are in need. I must send clothes all the way overseas for what? When they're Caymanians. or others in the Cayman Islands who could use it. You understand what I'm saying? Ms. Morna says she didn't get the job. Maybe if she was hired, then she would have to dress to start her new job. Gabby says that she bought her son 2 school pants the other day, and that was $50. It's not easy. Trust me. That's why now that the borders are reopening, a lot of us can jump on that plane, honey child, because you can go to TJ Maxx and Marshalls and shop on a dime. You can get yourself all 10 tops for $50. Charlene says, Caymanians, now is the time to voice your frustrations in seeking employment in your own country with the stigma and discrimination because they're too ready to say we're too lazy and unqualified. Damien says the part that impacted me was the discrimination, not due to nationality. Jerry says that people need to start recording their own interviews. Can you imagine? Because of course then it becomes a he said, she said, hearsay. Well, I didn't say it like that, and you know? Yeah, Jerry, I mean, I could see why some people would feel that way. Perla says, suppose that's all that she had and all that she could afford. Some people are so judgmental sometimes. You know, I would be judging the stuff like she showed up on time. She was clean and well-groomed. Oh, she's too tomboyish or whatever. I'm like, really? That's where we're going with this? Andrea said, but Miss Sandy, did you reach out to the company to get their side? No, I didn't. And I tell you what, to me, this isn't about their side versus her side. This is about a young lady who's walked away from an interview feeling a particular way about a situation. What is their side? You didn't make her feel that way? Well, she feels that way. Right? So that might not have been your intent. But I think companies, HR managers, and organizations need to understand how their misunderstanding of processes or sometimes even lack of professionalism on their part. I have conducted many interviews in my day. And although you're sitting there judging people, yes, first impressions are lasting impressions, and you are judging them based on how they look and what they wear. That is not something you bring up during an interview. The same way I would not bring up your skin color, I wouldn't bring that up either. I feel like in this jurisdiction, we have no standards with so many things. There's just so much slackness going on that honestly, none of that matters. You can run ads saying, oh, I want a Jamaican, I want a Filipino, I want this person, I want that person. And there's not any anti-discriminatory legislation in place to say you cannot do that. Housing, it's the same thing. I am so shocked at the slackness in this country when it comes to those types of things and the things that I have heard that happen in interviews all the time. Ms. Darlene says, Sandra, if the young lady was good enough to work at her hospital for a period of time and her hospital management could not find an area to squeeze her in for a full-time job and not even to get her a job into another government department. Well, listen, when you have these temporary jobs that open up, such as the clinics because of COVID and stuff like that, you know, they fall away afterwards. And it doesn't mean that the HSA have those positions on a full-time basis to fill. They were filling a temporary need. Right? This mother is saying, I would not have allowed my child to leave my house looking just any kind of way. And I've seen photos, not necessarily of that young lady in that day, but I've seen photos of her children, how they dress, generally speaking, and I mean, perfectly fine. I don't know what she means by Too masculine? Really? What a mess. What next? Jess says exactly so, Sandra. Cameron, good morning. Cameron says, Sandy, tell him we have no feelings. Well, I don't take on what people think of me because that's none of my business. I'll make it as plain as I possibly can. What people think of me doesn't pay my bills and it has no real impact on me. So you're free to think whatever you want. And you telling me what you think about me, I just be like, okay, let me just fix this little strand of natural hair over on this side, and I gotta fix this next side over here. So that's how little I'm gonna be concerned about what you think. Let's do better. Let's give people an opportunity. Sometimes you have to take a chance on a young person and say, you know what? We're willing to train you. We're willing to give you guidance. You didn't get where you are today just so. There would have been people along the way in all of our lives that were instrumental in helping. Ms. Charlene says, Sandra, please cue up my comment again. She needs HR in-depth professionalism and customer service repo as far as I'm concerned. Let me just see if I can find that comment. Oh, yes. She says, I cleaned up my closet the other day and I donated to individuals in the community. A lot went to people I don't even know. And anyone that knows me knows there would have been expensive, and although secondhand, they would have been great condition. I love to help others. And my point is, no matter what country you're from, be grateful and respectful. There's always a way, folks, for us to help people. The other day I had some faucets. I was changing out some faucets. I had two. Perfectly working, fine, not a problem. And I put them up on the WhatsApp group to say, hey, I've got two faucets free for anybody to take. And they went very quickly. And one young lady said to me, Sandra, this was such a godsend because just recently I started having issues with my faucet and I need to have it changed. And then I saw your message. I was like, wow. You know, let's have this sort of community spirit of trying to help each other. It's not all about self. Damien says this is what they want to do, desensitize and demoralize. Ms. Shirley says, my daughter went to school where she was trained how to speak and dress for an interview. That's needed. Absolutely. I'm not saying that there is not a need for that. Without a doubt, there is a need for that as part of our school curriculum. I don't know what the school curriculum looks like, folks, but I'm willing to put my money on the fact that it needs a little bit of help. And in the practical world and the real world, your ability to interview well, as we can see over at Flow, the ones who look pretty and can talk a talk, whether they know what they're talking about or not, they're the ones getting the CEO positions. They're the ones getting promoted above the Caymanians who've been there for 30 odd years and are beyond qualified. Because you can network and you can schmooze and you can go out drinking with certain people and laughing up in their face and, oh, my dear. Oh, yes, darling. Oh, can I have another bottle of Don Perrier? Oh, can I have some special water? And this and that. That don't make you nobody. But impressions matter. I know. I've been to interviews. Listen, I'm one of the best interviewers in the world. Nobody can out-talk me in an interview, neither. I believe in doing my research, and I will research the company, and I will go in with facts and this and that, and you know. And you still walk away and don't get the job because they already had somebody earmarked for it, or oh no, we can't take on Sandy. She's too controversial. We don't want her up in here. So even when you make all those benchmarks, you do well, you interview well, you're still not getting the job in a lot of cases. They're always trying to find a way to shut you out. Miss Darlene says maybe if that employer is a man, They're expecting people to appear in tight pants, skirt, or dress, showing their whole shape. Well, this is a woman that was actually doing the interviewing. And the funny thing about it is, people caught on very, very quickly. They saw a photo of the same office where they're dressed, and everybody's like, their dress code, not nothing to be like, oh yeah, you look good. It is funny, I must say, that people picked up on. And then she commented and said, oh, well, we were having a, what foolishness should come out with? They were having a dress down day or something. I was like, please, y'all just need to stop the foolishness. Seriously. Any excuse in the world not to do the right thing. They claim that they're a consulting agency that offers administrative, passport, immigration, visa services. Well, Cayman got enough of them now. But really? So when you don't look all that professional yourself, all of a sudden, it's because you were having a dress down day? Right. I think they've since taken the photo down off of their website, but whatever. If you're having a customer appreciation day and that's how you show up for your customer appreciation day, clearly you're not a tie and suit kind of environment. And this young lady's outfit could have been tweaked with a little bit of advice. No, sir. Charlene says, pure slackness. You better believe it. Aquaman says, very sad that the interview didn't go well. They could focus on the positives. And if there's an issue, don't insult, but give guidance. And the point is, during the interview isn't the time to give the guidance. It really isn't. Moya says, honestly, I don't interview well. I get nervous. So I have to prep heavily and write things out I want to say in an interview and rewrite and reread right up until the interview point. So I have my thoughts straight. This is why I put a lot of effort into my resume, so that my qualifications and 15 years of work experience can speak up for me when I clam up in the interview. Cameron says, and all we can do is fuss because nobody in a position to change anything wants to take accountability. What a mess. Antonio says, good morning. Who's Patrina? I don't know who Patrina is. Wants to join in. Well, we're out of time this morning, but she can certainly join in tomorrow, whoever she is. Perla says, blame it on the alcohol. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the program as usual. Tomorrow's Friday, so we will have a full show for you tomorrow. Again, our condolences to the family of young Kane Thomas, who I believe he's only 20 or 21 years old, had his life snuffed out into the early mornings. This morning around 2 o'clock, his body was discovered with a gunshot wound to the head. Our sincere condolences to his family. Stay tuned tomorrow, folks. We're hearing some rumblings of a potential arrest in another case. We're trying to verify that with the authorities. Keep it locked here on Bobo 89.1 FM and Cayman Mall Road.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.